Time having arrived, I call this special meeting of the City Council to order. If you could just please rise and help us salute our beautiful flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilors, before we begin, I heard from Councilor Azak, who's running a little late, and Councilor Teixeira is a little under the weather. With that being said, Mr. Clerk, agenda item number 1, please.
We have the call of the meeting.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have the officer's return of notice.
2 is accepted and placed on file.
Item 3, we have a communication from the mayor in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, hereby recommending that the City Council authorize the transfer of $947,497 from certified free cash to reserve for SRF appropriated deficits.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
We have a communication from the mayor in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, hereby recommending that the City Council authorize the transfer of $483,181.91 from certified free cash to Health Insurance Trust Fund.
Accepted and placed on file.
Communication from the CFO relative to the same.
Accepted and placed on file.
Ordered that the city clerk be directed to amend order number 1 as voted by the City Council on June 24, 2024, to amend the order so that the language specifically states that the $510,061,072 appropriation order for the FY25 revenue budget reflect that the appropriation includes a line item for $1 million spending from the stabilization account, $952,075 from certified free cash, $7,947,925 from Chapter 324 Reserve Fund, and $650,000 from ambulance receipts as reflected in the FY25 budget book. Be it further ordered that the city clerk be directed to amend order number 3 as voted by the council on June 24, 2024, to amend the order so that language specifically states that the $23,766,360 appropriation order for the FY25 revenue budget reflect that the appropriation for certified retained earnings included the line item for $2,606,668 from the DPW Water Enterprise account. Be it further ordered that the city clerk be directed to amend order number 6 as voted by the council on June 24, 2024, to amend the order so that language specifically states that the $2,396,174 appropriation order for the FY25 revenue budget reflect that the appropriation for certified retained earnings included the line item for $510,967 from the Parks and Recreation Enterprise account. And councilors, this is the item that has been postponed by you twice at council. DOR wanted this to be acted on with all the other orders, and that is what we're doing tonight.
So the question come to us on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Lally?
Yes.
Nicastro?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
That's 6 in the affirmative.
And the question is adopted.
Motion to reconsider in the hope it does not prevail.
Second.
Second.
A motion for reconsideration with hopes that it does not prevail has been properly made in second. All those in favor of reconsideration? All those opposed? It fails. Number 8, sir.
Item 8, ordered that the City Council authorize the revocation of the general fund subsidies of the Parks and Recreation Department in the FY25 budget in the amount of $400,000. This was another item that was postponed at the request of DOR till this evening.
The question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Lally?
Yes.
Nicastro?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
And the order is adopted.
Item 9, ordered that the City Council authorize the revocation of retained earnings to balance the refuse enterprise in the FY25 budget in the amount of $294,630. Councilors, this was postponed, but we do have a substitute substitute order in the hands of our clerk that she will read at the request to straighten out for the DOR, and Dr. Clarkson is here to answer any questions.
Yep. So the substitute.
So we need a motion.
Motion to admit a substitute order.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and second to admit a substitute order. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It so carries.
Ordered that the City Council authorize the use of the following subsidy for the FY25 budget in the amount of $294,639 from free cash to DPW refuse.
Dr. Clarkson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. With your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I'll offer some general remarks on these in the following orders, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I did send you yesterday a pretty detailed explanation of this and the subsequent orders. Provided on your desks are the original letter from back in October from the Department of Revenue, which is the reason why we're here. A synopsis of these orders that supplements my email from yesterday from the auditor, Irene Giannopoulos, which is also on your desks. And most importantly, the actual free cash calculation for the general fund and enterprise funds is also on your desks. Let me start with that. Despite the challenges that we've had in the last year and a half, I think it's an historic achievement that we were able to have certified free cash of more than $21 million. That is net of the $7 million that the schools needed to meet their net school spending. That money has already been provided to the schools. It is not included in this number, so that does not need to be deducted. Another question was posed to me about the money for the non-net school spending. You already voted to put that money in stabilization. This $21 million is net of that. So that $21 million is the result of tireless work by Irene and her team, by my team, and by the school finance office to reduce the reductions of free cash from open grants or special revenue funds. You will see an item later on in this budget to address a little less than $1 million in special revenue fund deficits, and when we get to that I can explain the specifics. But if you recall, the deductions from free cash last year were well in excess of $10 million because of primarily grant funds that had not been cleaned up and accounted for. So despite the challenges that we've had in the last 18 months, this is something that is really noteworthy because it represents a concerted effort by a very large amount of people in this city to restore us to financial stability. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods, but it really does take an important step forward in our fiscal stability. So this specific item and the ones that follow, Irene has been working very closely with the DOR and their team. They have, as you know, been paying very close attention to these meetings, to our deliberations, and to our calculations to make sure that they're comfortable with all of the language. So this language change just uses some of that certified free cash. And there's another refuse vote a few minutes later tonight. This was money from FY24 that was used to balance the budget, and this is a clarifying vote from the Department of Revenue related to that. Again, Irene is here if you have any specific questions for her, but this and all subsequent votes were with the close coordination of the Department of Revenue and at their specific request.
Council Follow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the auditor to step forward for a minute, and I don't have any detailed questions for her, but I've always said the auditor's office in this city processes $500 to $600 million worth of accounts. And it's tedious work reconciling grants. It's tedious work reconciling financial records with not a robust staff, with a limited staff. And so I'd like the auditor just to talk a little bit about how much time it took, maybe how many hours went into this, and just some of the nuts and bolts of what we did, because for most people, they're not going to care. But for those of us who know how important it is, particularly this year and next year, I think it's important to have you offer a few brief comments.
Good evening, Councilor Farwell. Good evening, City Council. where do I begin to get to the point to explain how myself, my team, all financial positions in the city, including the CFO, our DPW commissioner, our assessor, anyone involved in certifying free cash and setting the tax rate, how much effort went in to get this free cash certification of $21 million. I know I've publicly stated that previously, months ago, that when I took the role as assistant auditor, and I was quickly thrust into being the acting city auditor, me and my team, through UMIS, discovered a lot of accounting errors that were missed on our side, a lot of cleanup that needed to be done, in other words. So this was a 6-month process to do the balance sheet and certify the free cash. I'm working with DOR since. But it's been about a year and a half of us trying to clean up and understand the accounting from a UMIS perspective with what occurred over at the school department. Additionally, cleaning up old grants that were inactive that were never transferred into the general fund per UMIS. So it was really, along with doing all of that, we were trying to finish the FY23 audit, continue to help the school department with various issues, and what's before us all now is pretty much what we see as what's left of finally being cleaned up. And going forward, we do expect from my office to see a brighter horizon when it comes to accounting. I hope that explains the work that's gone into getting to this point.
So this actually will be beneficial going forward because now we have an absolutely accurate baseline, which has been reviewed, or we've had participation by the Department of Revenue. And even though it's probably boring to most residents, I do think it's important for them to know that we pay attention to detail. The DOR works with us to add another layer of detail and review. And when you're dealing with people's money, I think that's so important.
Right.
Well, speaking for myself, I hope you'll thank your entire staff because, I would never want to go into finances for a career. God bless all of you. It is tedious work, but it's for a city like Brockton where we don't have a huge tax base, we don't have Legacy Place in Dedham, we don't have Marina Bay in Quincy, we don't have University Avenue in Westwood. If we did, the chairman of the assessors who's here would be a very happy man. So what we do every year is still extraordinary under normal circumstances because we're able to maintain service levels for our residents and in some cases augment those service levels. And I just can't thank you enough. And I'm sure you're glad it's over.
Well, I haven't certified the tax rate yet, so we're almost there. We're almost there. But yes, this has been a lot of detailed work, and a lot of what we're presenting to you tonight, truthfully, not just by the request of the DOR, but from the city auditor herself, the specificities that are required in the orders, which, I don't know what happened in the past, but it helps us fill out the balance sheet a lot more easily. It helps us understand kind of what's going on, especially from a DOR perspective, because they're not here. So anything that's passed is, of course, appreciated, and I'm available for any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, Dr. Clarkson and Madam Auditor. So I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this. On the first document you sent regarding the free cash certification, where it lays out, the $21 million free cash calculation, it lists a bunch of different programs, and including the sewer deficit, the stormwater deficit, the trash deficit. So am I to understand that we are, with this free cash, paying all of these line items? Is that what's happening? Is that what we're trying to do?
So I can answer that, and then Irene can certainly supplement it if you wish. The answer is yes and no. Generally, when there are deficits in funds, as you saw in last year's free cash calculation, or frankly, in the free cash calculation, if you look at the free cash calculation for every municipality, which you can on the DOR website, that those first two numbers that make up the undesignated fund balance are your revenues in excess of projections and your budgeted but unspent funds. And then from there, the Department of Revenue makes a series of deductions. I've never seen one, maybe they exist, where there aren't any deductions in any community, where there's never a June 30th reduction for a grant reimbursement that was filed but wasn't filed by June 30th, or state revolving funds that were granted but haven't been applied for. So there's always some reductions. What we saw last year, that was those deductions were well in excess of $10 million. What we're seeing here is a much smaller number, including, as we've discussed here at the City Council, one of the reasons why the mayor made the decision, I believe, to take back over the federal HUD funds was that he was concerned or thought that they would be better managed within the city. And indeed, there are some deductions from this free cash from some of those federal HUD programs that we now manage. You will see, yes, the sewer and the trash and the stormwater deficits that we're asking you to cover in these votes are also a deduction from free cash. They are deducted from free cash, but we're also being asked because, to compensate for them with the retained earnings, because the free cash calculation is a snapshot as of June 30th. But those deficits remain and have to be covered, compensated for. And so they are a deduction to free cash because as of June 30th, those existed, but they still exist because the adjustments that you made into the fees for those enterprises were not in place as of June 30th. So we do have to compensate for those and use free cash to cover them. I believe firmly that for refuse and for sewer, the adjustments that you made in the rates are sufficient that those deficits will not carry over into this year, as we've discussed extensively in these meetings. A double hit, kind of, but one that we don't anticipate will perpetuate into the following years.
Okay, so you said yes or no, and that's because you're saying that some of it is from our retained earnings and then some of it's from our free cash. So everything listed on this form is basically deficits that arose in fiscal year 24 that we're now satisfying either with these retained earnings or projected retained earnings or the free cash.
So, but remember, and this is where it gets confusing, that these calculations are a snapshot at a place in time. And so it's possible, and I'll go again back to last year because the list is much longer and for much more money. Irene would have a better idea on each specific grant and whether or not the balances are different now. But it's possible that many of these, that we were just awaiting reimbursement from the Commonwealth or from the grant provider, and so no further action was required because it's already been taken care of. But because that calculation is not ongoing, it's static at a point in time, those reductions come. But things like the enterprise deficits are different, and we have to make those up.
Was that point in time June 30th of this year for these, or is this the point in time now, today?
Oh, it's June 30th.
June 30th, okay. So you're saying that a lot of this is going to be backfilled when we receive the money for these grants, but as of right now, to balance the books, we have to deduct it from our free cash or whatever to show a zero balance in 24 with the expectation that some of this money is going to come back to us.
Right.
Okay. But
No,
not,
go ahead.
obviously not the enterprise fund deficits because those are actually incurred, and we have to fill that hole. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, you kind of quickly mentioned the 7 million net, and then we were talking about the 6 million non-net, and then, but there's a projected another 5-6 million, at least with the calculation that the superintendent brought before us during her presentation a month or so ago. So with the original 7 million you were talking about, was that the funding gap between what was requested and what we provided?
No.
Or just tell me what that 7 million is when you...
No, we fully met net school spending last year.
Yes.
That 7 million represents money that the city council appropriated for net school spending that remained unspent by the school department. So it was money that was available for educational purposes, but money that they did not spend.
In fiscal year 24.
In fiscal year 24. That is, I can tell you in my experience anyway, a rarity. It does not usually happen that there's millions of dollars unspent. Now, it was an extraordinary year, and for a good portion of the year, we were recovering from an $18 million deficit, and so there were systems put in place to ensure that the schools did not incur another deficit. There was reduced scrutiny and, increased scrutiny in hiring. We closely monitored money that was transferred, and so all of those factors that led to the creation of the deficit, we made sure that we watched very closely. So as a result, at the end of the year, they had $7 million left over, I guess, is a common term that everyone can understand. So from an accounting perspective, we had to make that money available, and Irene and her team have done that. So that money now sits over at the school department and is available for appropriation by the school committee. But the reason I mentioned it in this context was I was in a meeting earlier today and was asked the question, is that 7 million part of the 21 million? So do we in fact have 14? The answer is no. That $21 million calculation for free cash is net of that $7 million.
Okay, and that 7 million remains at the disposal of the school department?
Correct.
Okay, now are they able to use that fiscal year 25, or is that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, great. Now, regarding the non-net, so we cut that by 6 million. You're saying that's essentially in a stabilization fund, correct?
Not essentially. You voted to transfer $6 million.
Oh, that's right.
Into the city's stabilization fund. And so that money is available for any municipal purpose, but certainly when the request was made to transfer, the spirit of the transfer was you reduced, in the mayor's requested budget for this year, you reduced that non-net number actually by 7 million. 6 million of it we put in the stabilization fund. So that is available for transfer at any time. I anticipate that somewhere very soon after the beginning of the calendar year, the mayor as the chair of the school committee and as mayor working with the school department will make a request to appropriate that money. But the mayor and the school committee and the superintendent are aware that that requires a supermajority of the city council to appropriate that money.
Okay, understood. I now remember the transfer to that stabilization fund. Now, they spoke of an additional 5 to 6 million that may be required for non-net. Would this free cash be available for that, or no?
Yes, it would be available for that. I think if that time comes that request is made, and it is my fervent hope that there are steps taken in the transportation operation to reduce costs, to either significantly reduce or eliminate the need for that additional $5 million. But should it come to pass, this is a legal and appropriate funding source. There are obviously other potential uses of that money, including balancing the FY26 budget. So those are discussions, I think, over the course of the next several months that we'll be having here.
Now, isn't there a time frame in which we can use these funds, the free cash? Doesn't at some point they're no longer accessible until balancing the budget of the next fiscal year? And when is that time frame?
That's not a firm date certain, but it is related to the budget process and when you vote to create the following year's budget.
Wasn't it, but when we set the tax rate, where it's no longer accessible?
No. It's definitely accessible because you often, here in Brockton, always use that money to fund the following fiscal year's budget. So it is available to be appropriated.
Okay. Speaking of the tax rate, I know by reading through some of this, the discussion was that we have to clarify some of these orders, and then whether we're raising some of the numbers or lowering some of the numbers, and that's so that we can have final numbers to help us fill in those deficits so that we can then set the tax rate. After we perform those functions today and next week, are we then on track to setting the tax rate prior to the close of the year?
Yes, in fact, there are no, should you agree to act tonight under suspension of the rules on these items, there are no further votes required of the City Council. Irene has worked closely with the Department of Revenue, as has John O'Donnell, as has Marty Brophy. Irene was on a conference call this afternoon with the DOR, and should these votes be taken tonight, pending a letter from the mayor and me on some of the projected revenue related to solar developments, the tax rate will be set certainly by the end of the week, more than likely tomorrow or Wednesday.
So are you asking us to take, under suspension of the rules, the Finance Committee items that are before us tonight so that those can be voted on tonight, or are those okay to be voted on next Monday in regular City Council?
No, that is correct. Based on, in the detailed email I sent you yesterday, tried to make that clear, and I reviewed this with Corporation Counsel and with the City Clerk prior to this meeting. So the items that are on tonight's agenda, some of them are duplicative of the items that are on the Finance Committee agenda. So we'll ask you to vote them in this special meeting and then table them at the Finance Committee meeting. Okay,
understood. And then just lastly, I know we're filling in a deficit for the stormwater enterprise fund. I know we've been talking about stormwater for a little while now. It was my understanding in a previous conversation that all of the positions for that board have been appointed, but then when I read some of the statements in these letters that may not yet be the case. Do we know what is the status of the stormwater board?
So, the city clerk clarified that for me. When I mentioned to you in the email yesterday that there were appointments yet to be made, that's my mistake. I was unaware that the city council president had made his appointments. So that board is ready to go and to be constituted and convened. And once that happens, we can then begin to collect stormwater revenue for this year.
All right. And I guess lastly, you stated that essentially call it the 31 million in unreserved, undesignated fund balance is essentially a projection of revenue amongst some other things. How confident are we in that projection that this 31 million essentially is a solid number, and what's the chances of it may dropping as these revenues come in?
That number is not projected. Oh. That number is final and certified by the Department of Revenue.
21 million.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you done with the last lease?
I only had one today, so that's better.
Okay. Good.
It's an improvement.
Council, we did take a motion to take this substitute order. I would ask that the motion be made also to act on it this evening under suspension of the rules, because it is a substitute order. Is If somebody could make,
Motion to suspend the rules and act on it this evening. Yeah.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and second to take these items under suspension of rule and act on them tonight. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. The question now comes to us on
President,
adoption.
could I just ask one more clarifying
Go right ahead,
question? And actually a request to you, Mr. President, and the clerk. This is a very good handout that we received, this special meeting, 12/16/2024. For the average resident, they can look at this, and you're going to understand exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it, and I would like to ask that that be put on our website, city's website.
we'll take care of
The
it.
last statement I wanted to make, because I want to make sure that the public truly understands we're not engaging in any nefarious activity here. What the Department of Revenue wants is a true and accurate picture of what the city of Brockton is going to spend to provide all of the different services that we provide, including water, sewer, stormwater, Parks and Recreation Enterprise account, everything that we do using public funds. They want right down to the dollar what it's going to require for fiscal '24, because we're balancing the books, and then obviously in fiscal '25. Is that a fair statement, so people truly understand the umbrella under which we're operating tonight?
That is a fair statement. Most importantly, they want to make sure we're specifying the funding sources, really, in all of the orders, so they can understand where this honorable body is pulling everything from.
All right, and I'm going to do something Councilor Thompson does. And lastly, with respect to the net school spending that was not expended, given the fact that you've got teacher negotiations coming up and others, that can be used for anything, additional staff, settlement of union contracts, student achievement or student improvement programs, balancing the gap between achievement among the different groups in the city. So it's unrestricted. The school committee literally is going to have $7 million where they could have quite an impact on improving the school system. Is that another fair statement?
Yes, any lawful purpose for which net school spending funds can be used, this money can be used for.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I like that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, now the question comes to us on adoption of number 8. I know it's been a while since we talked about number 8 as amended.
And 9.
And 9. 8 and 9.
8 we've already voted on.
Just 9.
Are you guys trying to confuse me?
It's 9.
Number 9. The question comes to us on adoption of number 9 by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes,
Thompson.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
and the order is adopted.
Mr. President, on 8 and 9, I move that we take them collectively. I move reconsideration in the hope that it does not prevail.
Second.
A motion for reconsideration with hopes that 8 and 9 does not prevail. All those in favor of reconsideration? Anyone opposed? It fails. Number 10.
Item 10, that the following name sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $1,488,499.85 from certified free cash to DPW refuse retained earnings. Councilors, this is one of the items that the dollar number came in slightly higher from Department of Revenue, so I would ask for a motion to accept a substitute order and act on it this evening under suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to accept the new order as, and also act on it this evening. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Go ahead, Madam.
Ordered that the following name sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follow. Transfer of $1,491,860 from certified free cash to DPW refuse retain earnings.
All right, so the question is on adoption by a roll call vote as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes,
Thompson.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
and the order is adopted. Number 11.
11, that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $1,252,690.67 from certified free cash to DPW sewer retained earnings. This is also a number that came in slightly higher this morning, Friday afternoon from DOR, so I'd ask for the motion to accept a substitute order and act this evening under suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and second to properly made and second to accept the substitute and vote on this evening after suspension of rule. All those in favor? All those opposed? It carries.
Ordered that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $1,419,992 from certified free cash to DPW sewer retained earnings.
And the question is now on adoption as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes,
Thompson.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
and the order is adopted. Number 3.
Can we have reconsideration on that?
It would be for 9, 10, and 11.
And then 11?
Yeah, I'm going to do them all eventually,
Okay,
but
thank you.
I'll move reconsideration on 10 and 11 collectively in the hope that it does not prevail.
Second.
A motion for reconsideration on number 10 and 11 has been properly made in second. All those in favor of reconsideration? Anyone opposed? Reconsideration fails.
Item 12, the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $73,760.21 from certified free cash to DPW stormwater retained earnings. And council, this one is 89 cents different, but I would ask for a motion to take a substitute order and act this evening under suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to accept the changes on number 12 and act on it this evening. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Madam Clerk, please call. Please read your.
Order that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $73,761 from certified free cash to DPW stormwater retained earnings.
So now the question is on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
And the order is adopted as amended.
Pardon my math, councilors, that was 79 cents, not 89 cents.
Couple cents here.
Item 13, ordered that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $483,188.91 from certified free cash to health insurance trust fund. And this did not change. We don't need a substitute order on this.
We do need a motion to.
No, just
act on this.
roll call. Actually, yes, you're right, I'm sorry. Could we have a motion to act this evening under suspension of the rules?
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and second to suspend and act on this evening. All those in favor of suspension? Anyone opposed? It carries. The question is now on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
And the order is adopted.
Item 14, ordered that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $947,497 from certified free cash to reserved for SRF appropriation deficits. And we would need the same motion to act this evening under suspension.
Move to suspend the rules and act on it this evening.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and second to suspend the rules and act on number 14 this evening. All those in favor of its suspension?
Referring it to finance and bank.
Are you guys in favor of the suspension?
Yeah, yes.
All those opposed? It carries. Now the question comes on adoption by a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Farwell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Nicastro,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative.
I thought
President, on items 12, 13, and 14, I move that we take them collectively and I move reconsideration in the hope it does not prevail.
Second.
a motion has been properly made and second for items 12 and 13
14. And 14.
and 14 For reconciliation and hope.
You haven't done that in a
I
couple
gotta
of
do
years.
that again.
Yeah.
For reconsideration with hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor of reconsideration? All those opposed? It fails. I did that just for you, Councilor.
You almost made it the whole year, Mr.
No, I did that
President.
just for you, so that you remember. And I have a head cold to go along with this, so.
And that's all we have for the special meeting.
Councilors, do we have anything else before we go into our FinCom meeting? Having no further business for the people of Brockton, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.